Hey, what's up, guys? We are in our last week of Daniel. Some of you thought we would never get here, and some of you have been waiting for this week, and some of you don't want this series to end, but this is the last week, and we're highlighting the most famous story in Daniel. It's Daniel and the Lion's Den, but just a reminder, if you're looking for a commentary to read throughout this, I recommend this commentary, Christ-Centered Exposition. I believe this commentary will help you understand the Bible better as you are reading it. So let's do a quick recap about what we've talked about so far in this series. In week 1, we saw how Daniel's holiness gave him the ability to speak into King Nebuchadnezzar's life. In week 2, we saw how God honors his servants who faithfully serve him. In week 3, we looked and we saw that believers should have courage to detest idols and profess Christ with their lives. In week 4, we saw that our life is not for our glory. Last week, in week 5, we saw that those who don't learn from history will suffer. And that leads us all the way to Daniel chapter 6. And today's message is about this. Stay true to God even when it may cost you. Stay true to God even when it may cost you. So at the end of Daniel chapter 5, we saw that Belshazzar was no longer king because the Lord handled business there. So we have a new king in town. It's King Darius. And King Darius assumes the role, and we see we now have a third king in the book of Daniel. And so he appoints 120 satraps and 3 officials over all of the land of Babylon. Well, who was one of these officials? It was Daniel. People at this point did not like Daniel. I think the reason why they didn't like Daniel was because Daniel stayed on the straight and narrow, and he really didn't mess up much. And so these other officials were starting to get annoyed by Daniel. It says in verse 4 that they were trying to find a way, a complaint against him to bring before the king. Now it says as they searched, they could not find anything. Daniel was an upstanding guy, and so they were kind of getting frustrated with Daniel by this point, and so they thought that they can make a new decree. See, as they have a new king in town, they wanted to test his pride. They come before King Darius, these officials, and they say, King Darius, we have a proposition for you. This proposition is this, that we should make a decree that no one can worship any other gods or any other man besides you for the next 30 days. Now, they had a goal with this in mind. They knew that Daniel would stay true to God even when it would cost him, but they presented this before Darius. As Darius is new king, he likes this idea, and so he signs this decree. It says in Daniel chapter 6, as soon as Daniel heard about this, he still went back to his house, to his room of prayer, and he prayed there to God. As these officials saw Daniel praying, they knew they had him right where they wanted Daniel. So they go and they approach King Darius, and they tell Darius, we have somebody who is praying. We have somebody who is not praying to you, but yet they are praying to God. And Darius says, you know what the decree is. We must throw them in a den full of lions. And all the officials, they kind of get excited when they hear this. And then they tell him, King Darius, this man who is praying, not to you, but praying to God, is Daniel. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. It says, as King Darius heard that this was Daniel, it says that he was distressed. It says King Darius was distressed. What that means is that King Darius liked Daniel. The more I read Daniel 6, I see King Darius is low-key pulling for Daniel throughout this story. So as he hears this, he knows what he must do. As a new king, he must stick to his word. As a new king, he must stick to his guns. And so it says the officials came out to Daniel, and they got him and they brought him in to the king. And just as the king demanded, Daniel was brought into a den full of lions, and a stone was closed to lock him in overnight. Now, this story is super interesting. We see a man who had not done anything wrong, but yet he was continually chasing after God, even whenever it may cost him. He still kept that at the forefront of his mind, and he still pressed on. See, Darius did not know who disobeyed, but he knew that he had to stick to his words. So as he's sticking to his words, we see that he is distressed. We also see other emotions start to come out about King Darius. It says in Daniel chapter 6 that King Darius did not eat that night. It says he fasted for the night, and yet he did not have any sleep. So King Darius is pulling for Daniel to live. Even as Daniel is going into the den of lions, in verse 16 he says this, "May your God whom you serve continually deliver you." See, I truly believe that Darius wanted to believe and that Daniel's faith would encourage him to believe. Well, as the nightfall is over and as the daybreak comes, it says that King Darius runs to the lion's den. In verse 19 and following, this is what it says. "Then at the break of day, the king arose and went in haste to the den of lions. As he came near the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, 'O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions?' Then Daniel said to the king, 'O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him and also before you. O king, I have done no harm.' Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken place out of the den, and there was no harm found on him, because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded that those who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke their bones into pieces." Well, what's the main idea that we see to this? Stay true to God, even when it may cost you. See, as Daniel knew that there was a punishment if he were to stay true to God, he still stayed true to God. As he stayed true to God, God delivered him in the midst of evil, and God delivered him in the midst of oppression. We see an attitude change of King Darius. In verse 25, King Darius wrote this to all the peoples and all the nations and the languages. This is pretty much him putting out on every social media platform he could about this right here. And it says this, "I make a decree that in all my royal dominion, people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever, and his kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to no end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth, and he who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions." So this Daniel prospered under the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Well, what do we see? Stay true to God, even when it may cost you. See, as Daniel stayed true to God and he stayed true to God's promises, even in the midst of hard times, God still stayed with him, and God still provided and pulled him through a really, really hard time in his life. See, Daniel's faith was contagious. Daniel's faith truly rubbed off on King Darius. I believe that King Darius was looking for something in his life. I believe King Darius was searching. He had favor in Daniel. It says that he was distressed when he learned that Daniel was the one praying. It said he didn't sleep or eat. And yet, as Daniel was going into the den of lions, he says, "May the God whom you continually serve deliver you." He runs to the den the next day just to check on Daniel. And as Daniel is okay, he sees that God is truly in control. As he sees that God is in control, he makes that decree to all the nations and to all the people to worship God the Father. And this is what we can learn from this story. Stay true to God, even when it may cost you. Thank you guys so much. Love you. I miss you. Hey guys, now that we have completed our last week of Daniel, we're going to start our new series. Drum roll, please. We're going to be in the book of Matthew, looking at the Sermon on the Mount and looking at the Beatitudes. This is how Jesus starts the Sermon on the Mount, giving the disciples character traits of which they must adopt into their lives. So I'm super excited about it. Next week will be week 1 of the Beatitudes. I hope you tune in and share them with a friend. See you soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this past video. Look, to stay connected with what we're doing here at Midway Church, there's many ways you can do that. The first is this: subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, when you subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way you know when we post a video so you can be in the loop about what's going on. Every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., Midway Church will be broadcasting our sermons live on our church Facebook page. Just type in Midway Church. There you will find exactly where we will be worshiping together as a church. If you don't follow any of our social media accounts, you need to do that. Our social media for Instagram is Midway_students. There you'll find all of our posts and other content. And also, if you're on Facebook, it's Midway Student Ministry. I hope you go there, you'll find out what we're doing, and it'll be a way for you to stay connected in a time where things feel so crazy. Boom.